Hi everyone. Today we are going to see sculpture as three-dimensional medium in art. So this is Michelangelo. So Michelangelo is generally regarded as one of the finest sculptor in the Western tradition. Some would say greatest. So he is the Renaissance sculptor, architect, and painter. And he is a rival of Leonardo da Vinci. His name means Archangel Michael. He began serious work as an artist at the age of 13 and did not stop until that claimed him 76 years later. So his equal may never be seen again. So sculpture's materials include diverse materials such as marble, metal, ceramics, wood, glass, wax, ice, plastic, and fiber. Sculptors' method today still include chiseling as Michelangelo did, also curving, molding, assembling, and constructing. But inventive sculptors are finding new ways to create their art and new materials to make it with. So there are two basic types for displaying sculptures. First type is freestanding sculpture, which is three-dimensional approach. And the other style is relief sculpture, which is specifically designed for viewing from one side. So let's see freestanding style first, for example. So although some freestanding sculpture is not intended, most freestanding sculptures display for showing every viewpoint, just like this sculpture. So this is a powerful and beautiful sculpture by Gian Bologna, who is a Flemish artist working in Florence, Italy. Designed the rape of Sabine at the request of Florence ruler Francisco de' Medici. The sculpture forms a kind of spiral that draws the viewer around to view its many changing planes. With each step, the viewer can discover unexpected details as the surfaces spiral upward. It recreates an ancient story about the foundation of Rome. Most of the early founders of Rome were male. For the city to grow, the Romans needed wives. So they solved this problem by inviting their neighbors, the Sabines, to a festival during which Romans seized the Sabine women and forced them to marry. So this story symbolized the ability of a small community to become the most powerful city in Italy. And with this dramatic scripture, Francisco announced to the Florentines and their enemies that, like Rome, Florence had risen to become a force to be reckoned with. And let's see relief type of sculpture now. So there are two ways in sculpture, two ways of relief in sculpture. So one is bas relief and the other one is high relief. So this one is bas relief example. So that means low in French. The sculptor's marks are shallow. An example of this kind of sculpted surface was found in the North Palace of the Assyrian king Ashurbanipal in the ancient city of Nineveh in Mesopotamia, where is current place in Iraq. And In high relief, just like this picture on the right side, the British sculptor Susan Durant chose to incise the surface more deeply for the figures closer to the viewer. So sculptural methods are either subtractive or additive. So in the subtractive processes, a sculptor uses a tool to curve, drill, chisel, chip, whittle, or saw away unwanted material. In the additive process of modeling, casting, or constructing, sculptors add material to make the final work. So that's the difference. So we are going to see a few of these sculptural methods now. So the most ancient works of art that still exist were made using subtractive method of sculpture. So most of these were made of stone and were worked by chipping, curving, sanding, and polishing. So one of the largest and most famous sculptural portraits were executed using the subtractive method, curving on a mountainside in South Dakota. The Mount Rushmore National Memorial was executed by John Borglum, and Borglum approached the task with great care and drive, changing the original idea of local figures to that of 4 presidents. So he spent 2 years looking for a mountain with the right stone characteristics to make the work a success. Most of the subtractive sculpting was done by skilled miners using dynamite placed strategically to remove large masses of stone. The choice of location and drilling practice were essential because once the stone was removed, it could not be replaced. And modeling in clay and wax is an additive process. The artist builds up the work by adding material. Clay and wax are pliable enough for sculptors to model them with their hands. So large sculptures, such as this ancient coffin sculpture, are built from multiple pieces fired individually. So we can see here assemblage line in the middle of the sculpture, just like here. So 4 separate baked clay pieces make up this coffin sculpture. Now let's see casting method as the one of the additive method of sculpture. So casting involves adding a liquid or pliable material to a mold. So it is done in order to set a form in a more durable material or to make it possible to create multiple copies of a work. So first 3 steps in casting is to make a model of the final sculpture. So look at the number 3. So this is the final look the artist wanted to show. So this is used to make a mold. And the casting liquid is often molten metal, but other materials such as clay, plaster, acrylic, polymers, or glass are used. So, and like this, it is poured into the mold, and when it hardens, the result is a detailed replica of the original model. So there is a video about casting sculpture process. Please watch it for understanding this complicated process. So we just saw traditional process of sculpture. The traditional processes used for sculpting were ideal for the creation of static objects by artists. And in modern, there are diverse types of sculpture. So we can see such as earthworks, construction, assemblage, ready-made, kinetic and light sculpture, and installation. So let's see each of the innovative sculpture types. So prehistory artists of the Americas made monumental sculptures that used the surface of the earth itself as material, just like this work. So this was additive sculpture on a large scale, and it is called earthworks. The best known modern artwork is Robert Smithson's spiral jetty in the Great Salt Lake in Utah. So this is it. And Smithson chose a spiral shape natural found in shells, crystals, and even galaxies. The coiled artwork was made by dumping 6,550 tons of rock and dirt off dump trucks, gradually paving a spiraling roadbed out into the Salt Lake. And let's see construction as one of the innovative sculpture styles in modern. So the idea of constructing sculpture is relatively new. Methods for doing so have proliferated with the growth of standardized engineered materials such as sheet metals and plastics. In the late 19th century, sculptures began to look beyond traditional curved or cast forms to the process of constructing. So this is British artist Damien Hirst's work, and he made his work. The physical impossibility of death in the mind of someone living out of a large tank full of formaldehyde in which he suspended a death shark. So of course, not every part of his work was constructed, and Ernst had a shark caught by fishermen, and the entire work resembles the dissection specimen in a biology class. So Hirst is known for creating his sculptures from unusual objects that contrast life and death. And the next new sculpture type is assemblage. The practice of gathering objects and fabricating them into a work of art is called assemblage. The gathered objects, sometimes called found objects, are repurposed so that they support the visual ideas and compositions of the artist. And ready-made looks familiar with us, right? So in the early 20th century, a few artists began to create the works using as raw materials artifacts that already existed. Sometimes they simply decided that found objects were works of art. And this is Pablo Picasso's work. He took the handlebars and the seat of a bicycle and combined them to make bull's head. So such artworks are known as ready-made. And also we learned this ready-made on the very first day of the course, right? When you saw Marcel Duchamp's Fontaine, the male's urinal work. And let's move on to the kinetic and light sculpture. Technological advances in our society have created more opportunities for creativity. So sculptors who work with movement and light express their ideas in ways that would not have been possible just a century or two before. So these moving and lighted sculptural works, similarly to those of the constructivist, rely on mechanical engineering as well as the creative input of the artist. So sculpture that moves is called kinetic sculpture. And modern artists have explored many ways of expanding the range of sculpture as a medium. Then installation sculpture involves the construction of a space or the assembly of objects to create an environment. So we are encouraged to experience the work physically using all our sense, perhaps entering the work itself. So these are all new types of sculpture method. So now we recognize there are lots of sculptures in diverse ways around us. So I hope you understand the flow of the sculpture in art through this chapter. Bye.